In Halaula, down camp and up camp, it's probably where I spent the first 5 years of my life. And it was just about maybe half a mile from each other, not too far. And I remember very well my dad said to me when we had moved, he said, "Son, why don't we go down and get the daylilies?" And my dad planted daylilies around the border of the house. And I remember those daylilies very well. They were about my height, when I was growing up. And beautiful daylilies, orange, nice, brilliant orange. And he wanted to be sure that he had some of those plants at the new house. And so we went down on a wheelbarrow. My father made a wheelbarrow, wooden wheelbarrow with handles and wheels. And we walked down maybe a little less than a mile. And he dug up the daylilies, put it in a wheelbarrow, had some dirt, and then we brought it all the way up to the old house, to the new house. And I remember we planted all the daylilies, and then he turned to me and said, "Son, I think you're old enough now, you can take care of these daylilies." And so I immediately, from 5 years old, my job was to take care of the yard and putting in those daylilies. And I cared for those daylilies until I was 12, and then I left to go to a boarding school, Kamehameha schools. And I kind of loved those daylilies because it came from the old house. He planted those daylilies there before I was born. And here we are, putting them in a new house, and they were my responsibility. I felt pretty good, 5-year-old kid taking care of the yard. And so those are some of the things I remember growing up when I was below 5. And I remember my mom and dad were so happy when she got a washing machine. And it was, I remember the brand was Easy, E-A-S-Y. Easy refrigerator and an Easy washer. My mom was in heaven. She now had a washing machine that did the clothes, and we had a refrigerator. And I do remember very well Richard Bartholomew, who worked at a plantation store. One of his jobs was to deliver the ice. And he would come with his truck, park, and grab a block of ice, open the door, and ice went into one block, and the other side were the shelves, and there was the ice box. And when my mother got a new one, my dad took that out on the side of the house, and he used it for storing all his tools, hammers, sickles, and wrenches or whatever. He used it as a toolbox. And so it was great. My mom was so happy. And I never forgot the first day. It was so funny because we got to the house, and before we walked in, there was a little spigot on the side by the front porch. And she said, "Okay, wait, everybody, okay, all your kids, wash your feet. We're going into the house. Wash your feet real good." So we washed our feet real good. She opened the door, and there was sawdust all over. and we kind of, "Oh, Mom, what's all this rubbish?" And here we are with clean feet. And my mom had to sweep the parlor because the carpenters had left a lot of sawdust. And anyway, I remember that. And so growing up there was up camp, and then I met some of the boys. Our neighbors was the Gonzales, and they were a Portuguese, Chinese, Hawaiian family. And she and my mom were very, very close. One of the best things I like about growing up in Halaula was that lovely neighborhood, up camp. And we're all, there were all different kind of ethnic groups. For example, our family was Chinese, Filipino, Hawaiian. Next door was Portuguese, Chinese, Hawaiian. And then there was the Kanashiros, Japanese, the Unitas, Japanese. Behind us was the Vintas, Portuguese, Puerto Rican, part Hawaiian. And then there was Junior Casimiro. And then there was the Velocitos. Then there was the Condas and the Sushitos. I mean, we're a mixed group of ethnic people. And it didn't bother us that we're Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, Filipinos, whatever. We're all one of a kind. And it made us feel comfortable. I never was afraid to walk around that plantation camp. Always felt safe. In fact, they treated us like their children. And you know, growing up, the adults were like our aunties and uncles. That's the kind of feeling I had. And no matter where I went, I also had to behave, because if I did anything wrong, my mom and dad would know in a second, you know. So we not only had moms and dads, we had uncles and aunties, a lot of them, that really cared that we were being brought up right, that we were safe, and that nothing would happen to us. It was such a good feeling to grow up with that kind of a surroundings. And then the new houses were here and here, and then there was an old camp, the older part of Halaula camp, were all these Filipinos. And most of them were all single. There were a couple of married Filipinos in there. The Orita family, the Bentayan, Leng and Bentayan, my very dear friends. There were a couple of Filipino families, but most of them were single men who had come from the Philippines to work on a plantation and, and send money home. That's all they did. But again, because my dad was Ilocano, Filipino, and I was part Filipino, they looked at me as their son. And I remember two words that I learned maybe when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. One was Baroque, and in Ilocano that means son. Baroque. And then I would say, when Tata, you know, I learned Tata was father. And these men were not my father, but it was my way as a little boy to respect them as such. And when I would say, Baroque, Baroque, I'd say, when Tata, you know, yes, father. And then he'd speak to me in the Ilocano. I couldn't quite understand, but like for sometimes, you know, they were older men, and there was this katudai tree. It's a tree with white flowers, and the flowers are edible. And so there was a Baroque, Baroque, and then he would point to the tree. And I knew immediately he wanted me to go up and pick up this flower so they could have it for dinner, or they could have it for a salad. And I knew, Baroque, Baroque. And or they go like, we had these huge mango trees. Baroque, Baroque, go get some mangoes. And I would climb the tree and give them mangoes. And there was one guy, Andres, and his name was Andres, but I always call him Tata. And whenever I needed a haircut, he was the man. In fact, I didn't need any appointment. You know, we didn't have a telephone at that time. There was no telephone. In fact, the only appliance we had was a radio. I remember Philip radio. And my sisters were aghast when I was trying to figure out, where is this guy in talking to me? And there was a little speaker, and it had a cover, And I heard the voice coming out of the speaker. So I said, oh, it must be somewhere in there. So I made a hole, and I tried. And my sister scolded me for making that hole. But I just couldn't figure out where this man was coming from, you know. And so, whenever I needed a haircut, though, Andres would see me walking and say, hey, Baruch, Baruch. And then I learned the word pokis. Pokis is haircut. And he'd say, Baruch, Baruch, pokis. And I would sit on his chair, just a little stool, on his porch, and he would cut my hair just with scissors and comb. Scissors and comb. And it was free, never paid. And I remember the day when he got an electric clipper. Yes, an electric clipper. And he was so proud that he had this electric clipper. And so I grew up with very safe surroundings. Uncles and aunties who made sure that nothing happened to us. Uncles and aunties who taught us how to behave, how to be nice, how to play together as kids.